Alrighty, welcome back from the episode of Two Plane Sports. Today, transfer portal talk. It's going to be kind of a shorter video, but some important players that we're going to talk about. A couple offensive linemen. But before we do, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. We're not too far away from 6,200. Help us get there. Turn the notification bell on. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Apple, Spotify, and TikTok. Everything's linked in the description below. So as I said, we're talking a little offensive line, transfer portal talk. Oklahoma has taken some offensive linemen in the transfer portal, but they're looking to add a couple more, hopefully. And the couple more are the Hatchet brothers, both playing for University of Washington last year, both from the Seattle area, talented players. Jose, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about kids from Seattle. Brandon, I think
It's
it
not
was
that
last
far.
cycle or, two
It was a
cycles
couple
ago.
cycles ago, yeah.
Yeah, always mentioned how it really was a quick road trip to get there. So it's not like they're going too far from where they were just at.
Exactly.
That Garion would be, I think, the guy that everyone looks at and would be the most excited about. Not that Landon wouldn't add to this Oklahoma offensive line depth, but you look at Garion, he played most of last year, was part of an offensive line that won the Joe Moore Award, and helped get to the national championship. He's got that experience already under his belt. Would help this team a lot. I think that's something that now in the transfer portal era of college football, you can go after those kind of players, kind of like you do in the NFL, where it's always talked about every offseason. These younger teams want to get experienced players that have made it to the mountaintop. Either have won a Super Bowl or have at least made it to the Super Bowl far in the playoffs, so they can kind of show everyone the ropes of how to prepare, how to get there. What their preparation was like. Now you got that opportunity here in Oklahoma if that's something that they can pull off for the offensive line, because that is going to be a very inexperienced group as a unit. You don't know what you have in a full starting five currently at Oklahoma. He could be the leader, if not a leader, if not the leader, to get this team to gel together in that phase of the game. There's still some time, but he does have to make a decision quickly. I think you looked it up earlier before we started recording. From the ad drop period is coming up, so and that's for Oklahoma. I don't know about any other school that he's considering. If there are others, I would assume for every other school that's coming up though as well. So a decision's got to be made quickly, and from what I've seen, he has only visited Oklahoma. I guess the only other school that would be a serious contender here would potentially be Alabama, since that is where their coach went. Kalen DeBoer, someone they're familiar with. Oklahoma, I think, has a good chance, but you gotta think in the back of your mind. You always got to assume these kids will heavily consider the coach that they just played for, especially since that's the reason why they got to be in the transfer portal, because their coach left their previous spot.
Yeah, I mean Alabama makes sense here, but I think Garion is the big prize here. I mean, as you mentioned it, he's part of the Joe Moore Award-winning offensive line. He brings that championship pedigree. He's a guy that if we do land him, he's going to come in and start. He's going to be a day one guy. He's going to slide in right away and kind of help develop some of the younger guys is the most exciting thing, I think, with if you do land him, because he's going to be obviously a short-term rental type player here, but he's a very good football player, man, and he's got all that experience. I think he can help a guy like Eddie Pierre-Louis, who I think is going to be just a monster. I think him sitting behind Landon Hatcher for a year would not be the end of the world here. I think that would be a great thing for him. There's a lot to like there. I think with Landon too, he plays center if I'm not mistaken, or he's somewhere along that line. I think he's a guy that can kind of push too. At least he might not start right away, like I think older brother Garion would, but he's a guy that I think could get in there and mix it up with Josh Bates a little bit, and let the best man win there.
And looking at them, like we've talked about, Jarian is the older brother, so he's played and he's talented. But both players coming out of high school were 4-star players, and so they obviously had talent with that. And what's also interesting is Oklahoma has a connection with the Hatchet brothers before this whole transfer portal. Oklahoma actually, believe it or not, had Jarian Hatchet on an official visit um, during his recruitment. And Oklahoma also offered Landon. Granted, it didn't seem like Oklahoma made as much headway with Landon. And part of that could have been that, the different regime, Jarian was class of 2020. Maybe they had a sour taste in their mouth and were like, yeah, we're not about Oklahoma. And then, Landon already kind of knew that. So there's already been some sort of history between Coach B and the Hatchet brothers. So that's a leg up. It seems like it's OU and Washington. Washington's new staff that has come in from Arizona realizes that they've got to keep their offensive line intact as much as possible. And I would start with the Hatchet brothers if I were them, and they obviously are. But the thing is, there's been a question of whether or not Landon has an offer. It seems like Oklahoma has offered Landon a spot as well as his brother Jarian. And it's not just like an offer just to say, well, we got to offer this kid so we can get his brother. They're both very talented in their own right. They're both 4-stars coming out of high school. They both can play. Oklahoma recruited them both out of high school. So they both have offers, and it seems like Landon, there's a chance. So you're telling me there's a chance that he could potentially visit Oklahoma this weekend. And Jarian already visited Oklahoma the previous weekend. I think it was last weekend he visited them. So if you could get Landon on campus, I would feel pretty darn good about Oklahoma getting both of them. Now, if you don't get Landon, I kind of have a hard time believing that they're not going as a pair. They're already at the same school. I feel like if they're going to go, they're going together. So I think if you don't see Landon show up this weekend, I mean, you got to make a decision. I think the ad drops next week. It kind of is what it is. It's either now or never.
And it wouldn't be surprising if they both go back to campus this weekend, and maybe that's when the older brother Jarian or Garian makes a decision that he's going to enroll at Oklahoma, and it just gives Landon an opportunity to be there with his older brother. The thing that you brought up about how Coach B, Oklahoma, but specifically Coach B was recruiting them earlier, definitely helps OU. But if they were to land both of them, it changes the outlook of the future of the offensive line. You probably don't have to go into the transfer portal as much moving forward in the future because you do have him to help, like Brandon said, develop those younger guys at the interior of the offensive line. You do have guys like Sexton and Taylor there that have been there now for a couple of years that will more than likely also play at Oklahoma for another 2 years, wherever they get their opportunity on the line. So you've got a line that might not be the greatest going into game 1 of 2024 because they will need to gel and figure out. And hopefully it's not the same issue they had last year where they just kept rotating guys throughout the first, what felt like half of the season to figure out what group of 5 was going to be best. Maybe they'll figure out the first 3 would be ideal, but they're going to have guys there that will have a couple years of playing together, and hopefully that gets Oklahoma and Jackson Arnold to feel more comfortable, assuming Jackson Arnold also only plays 2 more years at Oklahoma.
Yeah, and I just think just like to kind of just cap up what you're just saying there and kind of just agree with everything we've been saying. This offensive line is the area that we were really, really concerned about the past month or so. When you lose all 5 starters, it's naturally a good concern to have. And then you land some guys early in the portal. I think if you land both these Hatchet brothers to kind of finish up that offensive line as far as portal classes and stuff goes, I think you do a really good job of getting a real area of concern and kind of making it a stronger area of the team.
And the last thing I'll add is if anyone's questioning if Landon, deserves an offer, like we're just trying to get his brother, Landon played in 9 games last year as a true freshman. And Washington went and played for a national championship that Oklahoma hasn't won a playoff game to go earn the trip to go play in the national championship. So
thanks, Lincoln Riley.
Yeah, I
putting
know.
It on him. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm just saying that Landon's talented in his own right. And, coming in, he can compete with the interior offensive line. Coming out of high school, he was interior offensive line, so he could play that guard, another guard position, very similar to his brother. But they both can play, and you add both of them, they both have some eligibility, especially Landon, 3 years of eligibility left. It would be huge, and it would add a lot of just, I guess, stability.
For sure. That's what they need at that spot.
Yeah. So hopefully he comes on campus, or both of them comes on campus again, because Oklahoma needs it. So that's all I've got, unless you guys have anything else. All right, Brandon, in the video.
Has anybody actually ever driven in from our viewers? Have any of you ever driven from the Oklahoma area, whether it be Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Norman, whatever, to that Seattle land area, and can vouch for that drive being easy? I'm curious to see if anybody's ever actually made that drive.
Dude, that drive is so far. I've never done it, but good Lord, that is far.
Looks pretty far on a map.
Yeah, I would say so. It's probably a pretty nice drive, though. Like, I bet it's pretty, driving through Colorado or Wyoming or all those areas. But
just it'll be interesting to see if anybody's ever actually loaded up and done it.
Yeah, and committed. So, but if you made it this far, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn the notification bell on, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Apple, Spotify, and TikTok. Everything's linked in the description below. We'll catch you guys next time.